Hi MUS119, this is the final module for week 4 for you to complete. This is module 6A, root position chords and triads. So this is the beginning of Roman numeral analysis in major keys. We will also be doing this in minor keys, but I want to start with major keys since this is usually what students are more familiar with. So chords and their qualities. All of the qualities within triads and seventh chords previously examined occur naturally. So in a major key, we can see these qualities naturally. So if you look, this is example 9.1 from the textbook, and you have what is written over here. You have the tonic and the other notes of the D major scale, right? And you just build a triad above it. So you can see here, make sure that to note that there's a key signature. You have D major, you have a 1 chord written for the first one, D, F sharp, and A. Then you have E, G, B, F sharp, A, C, sharp, G, B, D. You have A, C sharp, and E, B, D, and F, sharp. You have a C sharp diminished chord, C, and then so every single major scale will have the same pattern of triad qualities if all of the stack notes are derived from the major scale. So we're not going to change anything. We're going to make sure that we apply all the accidentals. So your 1 chord will always be major, your 2 chord will always be minor, your 3 chord will always be minor, your 4 chord will always be major, same with the 5 chord, you have a minor 6th and a fully diminished 7th. So this is the same when you look at any other major scale, and you essentially contextualize each note in that key. So like if we're looking here, you have D major, right? So when I was like going through this, I said, oh, the 1 chord is major. This is called a 1 chord because it's built on the first scale degree of the key. So you have a 1 written down. I use Roman numerals, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with those, but I'll show you them below. So you have a 1. It's all capital to, like similar to when you're writing major versus minor. You're going to write a capital 1 here. You'll write a capital 4, which is a line with a V, and you'll write the 2 lines on top, and then you'll have a 5 like that to represent the 5 chord. So those are major chords, and this is in any key. So like we're looking here, and in the key of D major, G, a triad built on G major naturally occurs to be a major triad, whereas over here you have an E minor chord, so this is a 2 chord because it's built on the 2nd scale degree. An F sharp minor chord is built on the 3rd scale degree, making it a minor 3 chord, and you have a minor 6 chord built on the 6th scale degree of D major. Then over here you have a C sharp diminished chord, so we write diminished Roman numerals as minor, like a minor interval, but with the circle next to it to represent that it is diminished. So those are the Roman numerals that you should know. You're always going to know that 1, 4, and 5 are major. You have 2, 3, and 6 being minor, and 7 will always be diminished. Cool. So, I have an example with all of this written out very nicely. So if you want to pause, take a picture of this. This is really important and can help you going forward with our Roman numeral analysis skills. Cool. So now what we're going to look at, I told you we were going to be more vertical rather than horizontal. And what we have written out here is on the grand staff, we have a chorale written. So we have 4 distinct voices. You have one that starts here, which is the bass voice. You have one right here, which is the tenor. One right here, which is the alto, and one on the top, which is soprano. So if you're familiar to reading in a choir setting, you will recognize this. So it may seem a little daunting to have a grand staff and be looking at everything vertically, but trust me, it really isn't that bad, and I'm not just saying that because I'm biased. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to write out my D major scale so that I can see all of the notes with all of the qualities, right? So I'm going to write a D, F sharp, and A, which is a major 1 chord, E, G, and B, which is a minor 2 chord, F, A, and C sharp, which is a minor 3 chord. We know that this is going to be a major 4 chord with G, B, and D. We have an A, C sharp, and E for a major 5 chord, B, D, and F sharp for a major 6 chord, a minor 6 chord. And then we have our diminished 7 chord over here, and we have a C sharp, E, G. Perfect. And then, of course, we go back to 1. Cool. So if I'm looking here, now that I have that written, and I can essentially like see my what is known as a closed position triad, I'm going to move all of this, each chord individually. So on beats 1, 3 of each measure, I'm going to condense these and make it into something that's more palatable for me to read. So I have a D here, right? I'm always going to keep what I find on the bottom for right now. So I have a D on the bottom, right? The next note I have is an F, then I have an A, and I have another D. So essentially I'm moving this from what is known as an open position triad to a closed position triad, which is what I have over here. So I can mark it and use these Roman numerals to write down what chord I'm playing. So right here, I have a 1 chord, right? Now, if I'm looking at what I have on beat 3, I have a B, right? This is an F, okay? Then I have a D and another F. So I'm not going to repeat that F, and I just have another B, right? So if I'm looking, I have B, D, and F, and that looks really familiar to which chord? The 6th chord, right? You have an F sharp, actually, sorry. But you have a B, D, and F sharp in a minor 6th chord as well. So now we're going to move on to the next chord and condense it a little bit. So I'm always going to start with my bottom note, right? I have an E, I have a B written out here, I have a G and another E. We don't have to repeat that. We have an E, G, and B, which looks really familiar to what chord? Your 2 chord, minor 2. You could also look at this and say, oh, cool, I have a minor 3rd and a major 3rd stacked together, right? Or what's really nice about what we're doing right now, all of it is in root position, meaning that whatever note is in the bass voice, so your bottom voice is the note that's going to be your tonic. So you can just look at this, and in the key of D, right, you have an E in the bass right here. An E is the 2nd scale degree. Well, any triad or chord that's built on the 2nd scale degree in the key of D major has to be a 2 chord. Now, if we're looking, we have an A in our next example, right? Another A, an E, and a C. And my goal with moving this from an open position of what's given to us to this closed position that I'm writing is to always make it align to be like a triad, like in that snowman position, stacking those thirds on top of each other so that I can see it better, so then I can analyze it better. So you have A, C sharp, and E, which I know is a major triad, and if I'm looking, that is a 5 chord, right? Because if you have D, E, F sharp, G, A, right? Boom, A is the 5th note of the key of D. You can confirm that with your what you wrote down here and the chord itself. And you can also see that it's a major triad. So then we're looking, and we have a D, an A, an F, and a D, right? So that's a 1 chord. We have D, F sharp, and A, which is the tonic triad. And then we have over here, we have a G, another G, we don't have to repeat that, and a G and a B, right? So here we have 3 notes that are repeated. We have 3 notes that are, or 1 note that is repeated 3 times, and then we have the 3rd of the chord. You can automatically assume that there's a 5th there. Typically, the root and the 3rd are the most important parts of the triad because those allow you to see the quality, which is designated by the 3rd scale degree, making it major minor with that major minor 3rd. between the root and the third, as well as the tonic shows you, like the tonic of the triad shows you where in relation to whatever key you're in. So in the key of D major, you have a G, right? Well, in the key of D, E, F sharp, G, G is 4, right? It's our 4th scale degree, so I have to write a major 4. And you can see that there, that you have a G, B, and D, which also aligns, excuse me, with what we wrote. Whew. And then we're going to end on 1, because we have a D, we have an A, we have an F, and an A. So if you're looking at this, this is a common chord progression. Unfortunately, I'm not good enough at piano right now to be able to play this for you. However, there is a recording of it in the textbook, and another important thing to know about this is that you're always going to start on the tonic, and you're always going to end on the tonic. In a typical chord progression fashion, you might have a this little bit over here that you have, this 2 5 1 is very common. Having a 1 4 1 at the closing, you might have a 1 4 5 1. Yeah, but this is a very nice common chord progression for you guys to look at. Sweet. So where do the 7ths fit in this Roman numeral analysis? 7ths can be added to any chord. However, we mainly see 7ths added to the 2 chord, the 5 chord, and the 7 chords. When there is a 7th added to a chord, you must make sure that you add a 7 next to the Roman numeral. So let's practice with 7th chords now. Now we're in a different key. Note that the key is given to you right here, and you can also tell in the key signature what key it is. But we're in the key of E major, so I'm going to write out my scale to show you. Okay, right? And we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So if we look, we have an E, G, B. You need to make sure, so since we're doing all of this in a given key, you need to make sure that you are adding the appropriate sharps. So for E major, you know that you're going to have an F sharp, a G sharp, I'm going in the wrong order. Father Charles goes down, right? So those are all the notes in this key that are going to be sharp. So you need to make sure that you add accidentals to that unless you're using a key signature, just so that you're able to see that, because we're fitting all of these triads into those chords, and like I said earlier in the PowerPoint, these all should occur naturally within the key that we're in, and it won't if you don't put in those accidentals. So you have an F sharp, A, and C sharp. You have a G sharp, B, and D. The D is sharp. You have an A, C, and E. C sharp. You have a B, D, and F sharp. Right? We have a C, E, G, G sharp, and a D, F, and A. Perfect. So those are my chords, right? And you're going to move them from that open position to a closed position. So they start out giving you 1, right? We could also end. If you look, you have an E, G, and a B, right? We're ending on a 1 chord. All right, so now let's look at our first measure on beat 3. You have an A, right? We're keeping that note in the bass. We have a C, we have an E, and we have another A. So that's my closed position. And if I'm looking at this, I have E, F sharp, G sharp, A. A is my 4th scale degree. This chord is a major 4 chord, right? Boom. Nice and simple. You can also look at the next measure. You have a B, you have an A, you have a D, and you have an F. And my brain is saying, alert, alert. There is a 7th here, right? So we have an F sharp, we have a B, a D sharp. Sorry. What? We have an A, not an A sharp. Oh my goodness. I'm reading in the wrong clef. So you have a B, D sharp, F sharp, and then A, right? So if I'm looking at this, this looks really familiar with my 5 chord, right? Because you have that triad. You have a B, D sharp, F sharp, and then you have the 7th above it. Instead of designating what type of 7th it is as major or minor, you're just going to write 7. And if you look, B, and you have an A, what's a major 7th below B natural? A sharp, right? But yeah, A sharp is 1/2 step below B natural. But you have A sharp is 1/2 step below B natural. A natural is 1 whole step below B natural. So we know that that's a minor 7th. So that's a major minor 7th. That is what is the definition of a dominant 7th chord. You have a major triad and a minor 7th above it. So anyways, you have an E, a G, a B, and another G, right? And we have a G sharp because of our key signature. So if we're looking, we have an E, G sharp, B, boom, 1 chord. Typically a 5 chord will move to a 1 chord. 1, 4, 5, 1 is very common, what we call progression, which is a series of chords written out one after the other. Okay, so let's look at the next one. We have an E, a G, a B, and another E, right? So it's the same chord, just another one. Let's condense this next one. We have a C, G, C, and E, right? And we have a C sharp, E, and G sharp. And if I'm looking at my my chart below with my scale, I see that a C sharp is a 6th scale degree. I see that it is a minor 6th chord, which you can tell based off of the composition of the triad as well. Our next one, we have an F sharp, we have an A, we have a C, and an E, right? And if I'm looking, I have an F sharp, A, C sharp, and an E natural, and that is my 7 diminished triad, right? But we have a 7th added on top, so when you have that 7, you need to make sure that you add the 7 next to it. Now we have a B, we have an A, we have a D, and an F. So I'm trying to make my snowman the best I can. I know that E, F, G, A, B. B is my 5th scale degree. I have to add the 7th there. Yeah, so that I hope that this was helpful in being able to see how to write out those 7th chords that you have. And contextualizing it within the key of E major. So this is exercise 9C, these 2 examples that I wanted to go through with you. So I want you to kind of take the reins by yourself. So step 1 of what we're going to do is we're going to move your open position notes to a closed position. So essentially what I was doing before with the D, A, F, and D, right? Moving it from this open to close. And then from there, you're going to see where does my triad or chord fit in the key. So take a minute and pause this, and yeah, I'll walk you through 9C. All right, so you have a D, you're in the key of D major, right? So you have an E, a B, a G, and another B. So if we're in the key of D major, we know our notes are D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, and D. E is the 2nd scale degree, so we know that our chord is going to be a minor 2 chord, right? And there's no 7th added, so we don't have to add that 7th. Then over here you have an A, C, E, and A, right? We know A is the 5th scale degree in the key of D, so you're going to write a 5 underneath, and you have the same notes. You have an A, C sharp, and E. You clearly have a major triad here, and there is no G added, so you don't need a 7th. And then over here, you're going to D major again, back to our tonic, you have 2 Ds, an F, and an A. If you look at the next part, now we're changing keys. We're in F major, right? So you have F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. And I'm going to condense these notes first. This is the last one on exercise 9C. So you have 2 Fs, a C, and we're going to assume that an A is there, right? So we always know that we're going to start and end on our tonic note. So in this key, it's F, right? You have another A and a C. And that's great. Then over here you have an A, right? So you have an A. I'm going to write it up here so I can see it better. You have a B, which I wouldn't write the B right next to it because I know A is my tonic here. You have an E and G. Oh, sorry, this is a C. I was like, why is that weird? Okay, great. So now you have C, E, G, and B, right? C, goodness. E, G, B. So I know in the key of F major, that my triad built on C is going to be my 5th scale degree, therefore it's a 5 chord. Now, do we have a 7th added? Yes, we do. We have 4 distinct notes, therefore I'm going to write the 7. Then over here you have an F, you have an A, you have a C, and another F. So we're back to 1. You have a D, F, an A, and an F. And if you look at your table, you have a 6th chord, right? Yeah, so that is my triad there. Over here you have a B, D, D, F. Wait, I'm like, I don't know why I'm reading all the wrong notes today, but G, you have an F, you have a D, and you have another G. We're going to assume when it's not there that you have the rest of the triad, right? Because you can see, before I even wrote that in, that you have all of the notes to complete that triad except for that B, right? So you can assume that it's there and that you have a G. So this is a 2 chord. And 2, 5, and 7 are the common ones to have a 7th added to, which really shows over here because this is a 2-7 chord. You have 3 distinct notes, even though one of them is being repeated. But you have the 7th added above, and when you have that 7th added above, that is why we add the 7th to our chord designation. It's not because we have 4 distinct notes, which is typically true for when you have a 7th chord, but because you have the 7th above the root of that chord, like right here, you can see we have an F, you have a B here. That is why we add the 7. So the next one we have is C, E, C, and G, right? So rather than key of F, C is 5. We don't have any 7ths. We're going to go back to 1 again because we have an F, right? F, F, C, and C. We're going to assume that the A is there. Then we have a C, E, we have a B, and we have a G, right? And this would be a 5 chord. And you do have the 7th above the bass, so it's a 5-7 chord. So take a moment, check your work with this, make sure that it's correct, and please make sure to email me with any questions that you have. We can always set up a Zoom session as needed. So I would recommend that you follow this lecture with Chapter 9 in the textbook. Exercise 9C contains content from this lecture, which is exactly what we were doing. We did half of it right now. So please let me know if you have any questions. And yeah, good luck with all of this. I'm sure you're doing amazing.